Tonight's Colors of the Dark is brought to you by the new scripted horror podcast Can't Relax. On the weekend before their ACTs, Anya and her friends download a new mobile relaxation app to take the edge off, unaware that it secretly plans murderous subliminal messages into the brains of its listeners. When people start dying, Anya must figure out who planned the corrupted malware on their phones and how to stop it before she becomes a killer herself. Starring Olivia Trujillo for All Mankind, Andre Robinson, Nico and Nico and the Sword of Light, Patrick Labertau from Heathers, and introducing Penny Epstein. If you're looking for something scary to listen to while driving, doing dishes, or exercising, this is it. It is super tense, but something that is PG-13 enough you could listen with your teens and tweens. We are 3 episodes in and having a blast. You can find the awesome and scary Can't Relax anywhere you would go for podcasts, and discover all the Glisten Plus podcasts at www.glistenplus.com.
Hello and welcome to Colors of the Dark. I'm your co-host, Rebekah McKendry, about to leave for Knoxville. And with me, hopefully sitting next to him on the plane, we'll see, Elric Kane.
Keeping it spooky.
Keeping it spooky. How's your October going?
A lot of Halloween rewatching, which was, I didn't think I was going to because I wasn't in the mood, but we're going to be in a couple weeks doing a big Halloween thing for a screen draft. I found myself getting very sucked into a certain run of films. Not all of them. I'm not going to watch all of them, but there's a little run that I wanted to rewatch and have been enjoying that. It kind of set the tone of the season for me pretty nicely.
I will say that there's been a couple that I rewatched, unsure if I liked it as much as I did the first time. We'll say that a couple of the slightly campier inclusions or ones that were a little polarized, I felt the need to rewatch to see if I still felt the same. And I've definitely had some interesting revelations about some of these films that I may have initially been a little bit hard on, but we'll have to see how this all rolls out with screen drafts.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. So that will probably be, I don't know, a week or so from... I think we're doing that a couple days before Halloween.
I think it's a couple days before Halloween. Yeah. And we are headed to Knoxville. Actually, we will be there when the show comes out. So we are currently in the Knoxville Horror Film Festival. So if you are anywhere in the Knoxville area, please find your way to the Knoxville Horror Film Festival and come say hi. We're going to be doing a live show there with Fred frickin' Decker.
Yeah, Fred Decker. And I think there's a drive. I think there's still tickets available maybe for the drive-in of 2 of his films and Halloween 3. So good times. We're looking forward to that very much. Come say hi to us.
Yeah. And I just got back from the Lovecraft Film Festival in Portland. So there's so much travel this month. It's just wild. But it was absolutely amazing. Thank you to Gwen and the wonderful team there. It was just an amazing weekend with amazing people. And I got to do a lecture. I got to screen Glorious. I got to be on a bunch of panels. And I got to see Suitable Flesh, which we'll be talking about in a sec with filmmaker Joe Lynch. And I got to meet one of my favorite things that I always get to do when I traveled is meet some of the local press. So like I got to talk with Eraserhead Press, which is a really cool company. Just phenomenal stuff I picked up from them, and Tenebrous Press I also got to meet as well. So just really cool local press out of Portland. You should definitely be checking out their books. And then I also got to do Halloween Horror Nights.
Oh, nice.
But you did pumpkins yesterday, right? Did you guys go to a pumpkin patch?
No, I didn't. You know what? I wasn't feeling. I think I caught something maybe at Beyond Fest on the last day of a movie that I'm not going to really talk about here. It's the Nick Cage movie, Dream Scenario, which is my favorite film of the year so far. I absolutely just think it was the funniest, best thing I've seen so far this year. But it's not. It does have horror elements towards the end, but afterwards I just started feeling a little bit like on the borderline. You know how you get sometimes, or after trivia, and then so I literally decided to do absolutely nothing for the last 3 days, and it's the greatest thing I've ever done in my life. Like I'm going to start doing that in October more often.
I don't think I've ever done that
in
my life. Maybe after the first and second COVID vaccine. After the first and second COVID vaccine, I felt shitty enough the next day that I canceled all my meetings and classes and was like, fuck you guys, I'm going to bed.
Well, it was a
but
weekend. I'm saying it was like a weekend.
Oh, it was like a weekend.
I'm just watching movies on a couch is what I'm saying, instead of going to, like, there's a friend's birthday that I couldn't go to, just a bunch of stuff that I had to.
See, I want that energy on like some idle Wednesday where I'm just like, fuck you responsibilities. I'm staying here and I'm getting nachos and this is where I am and I need that.
I mean, after this episode, we're going to take 9 months off, so it's okay. I can rebuild my stamina for horror.
Don't you mean like a week?
Maybe 2 weeks, but that's okay.
Maybe 2. But anyway, so I went to Universal Halloween Horror Nights, which was an absolute blast. I went with a big group of people and it's just such a fun event to, it'd been a couple of years since I had gone. Like they had obviously shut down for the pandemic. And then last year they were back and I don't even remember why I didn't go last year. But this year I was like, okay, let's do this. So yeah, it was the same Halloween Horror Nights that you know and love, where it's, you know, kind of the ambience and, you know, crazy people walking around with chainsaws trying to scare you. And then they had a bunch of different mazes. And as they have done in past, like the times that we used to go together before the pandemic, some of the mazes are IP, and those are definitely the most popular mazes. And then there are other mazes that are kind of original story, you know, kind of not based on a film or any type of IP. And those are the ones that I love. So this year they had the Chucky maze, which honestly, it was the one, like, it was a fucking 180-minute wait to get. I had like, we splurged for front of line passes or else I would not have done it. That's the point where I'm like, you know what? I don't need to walk through Chucky that bad. 180-minute wait to get on that one. It was by far the most popular maze at the park. It's okay for me. Like it was okay. There was a lot to it. And I love the new Chucky TV show. Like I think it's amazing. So I really wanted to see it, but it kind of mixed a number of the films together to try to create this kind of new thing where Chucky was counting the number of people he could kill in like a short amount of time. It was okay. Not my face. It was definitely not the worst either. There was the 2 that I thought were the absolute best. There was one called Monstrous, Monsters of Latin America. And that one I absolutely love because they picked like 3 fables from Latin America. It was like a giant bird woman, some guy who kidnaps you in a sack and eats people. Like it was just these really cool stories. And I hadn't heard them before. So suddenly going through a haunted house based on these stories was awesome because I had no idea what to expect. I knew nothing about the mythos and it was like learning the story as I go along, as opposed to the Stranger Things maze, which was literally the last season of Stranger Things played out through rooms. Like it was literally like, this is episode 1 and here's the main point of episode 2. And so it didn't, and same with Last of Us. Last of Us did the same thing where it kind of just felt like it was rehashing an episode. Another one of the original ones they did was Holidays, where they'd had like the Easter room and the fucked up leprechaun room and the fucked up 4th of July room. That one was really fun. Again, because you don't know what you're expecting. It's like, oh, I can't wait to see what they do with Valentine's Day. So yeah, the Evil Dead one was really good because they recreated the apartment building. So it actually felt like
Evil Dead.
Yeah, they did the new Evil Dead. You walked through the apartment building. It felt like you were walking through their actual apartment. And they did a really good job with the production design on that one, where it felt very realistic to what was in the actual movie. The bathroom was recreated. There was a lot of really good stuff in that. By far, well, I will say the Exorcist one, I probably would have enjoyed, but they filled it with smells. I'm mixed on how I feel about smells in haunted houses. Sometimes I'm like, oh, look, the person's cooking and it smells like bacon in here. Clever. The Exorcist haunted house smelled so badly like rot puke. I don't know. Like there were people who had to leave the maze when it got to that point, and I found myself gagging. Like it destroyed it for me. And I'm sure that, yes, if you were actually in The Exorcist, it's going to smell like it's not going to be a pleasant experience, but it was just so overpowering that it almost tainted the experience.
What would have been funnier if they had pea soup smell, like just
right?
If everything just smelled like soup. I think that would have been good.
Just soup. By far my favorite part of the night, and this is just such a weird one. The Terror Tram was cool. The Terror Tram was bug themed, and I will always be excited about killer bugs. But The Purge, which is not the one that I expected to love so much, The Purge took over the Waterworld water show.
Oh.
So in Universal Hollywood, I assume they do the same in Universal Florida. They have this like water setup. It's like a stage, but it's flooded with water. And they treat it, it's usually the Waterworld kind of effects show. And they have flamethrowers and boats and jet skis.
It's rad. I love it. It's one of my favorites.
Awesome. It's why would they still have a Waterworld attraction? That's fucking why. It's honestly one of the best parts at Universal. And so they converted it into the Purge Water Show about a senator who is holing up during the purge on this island, trying to stay away from the purge, but people find him and want to take him down. And it was so cool. It was honestly like my favorite part of the entire evening was just that and going, oh my God, things are exploding. And that guy's on a jet ski. And it was fun.
They kept a jet ski and a purge thing. That's pretty funny.
2 jet skis and a boat. It was brilliant, and a lot of flamethrowers. So yeah, it was just like one of the most fun things that I have done this season so far. So that's Universal Halloween Horror Nights. There's still tickets available. It's a wild time.
Nice. Well, I didn't do anything fun, so I just watched. Well, it's fun to me. Being on a couch watching Halloween movies is pretty much what I live for this season, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
So I'm good with that. But let's chart through a few of the movies that we both watched, and then I've got a couple others I think we both have. So we both watched Totally Killer, correct?
Yep.
Nachka Khan directed. New on Amazon. It's about an infamous Sweet 16 killer in a neighborhood has returned, and it involves the time travel of a daughter going back in time to save her mother, played by Kierna Shipka. People love this movie. People are really into it. I'm curious to hear how you feel about it.
I thought it was a blast. And I know because I texted you as soon as I started watching it with, holy shit, this is fun. And you texted back, I have a complaint. And so I have to hear your complaint, but I thought this was fun. I mean, like it was fun, campy, funny. I will always take horror comedy. That's the thing is like, we don't get a lot of horror comedy. It's a hard sell. Like studios don't even know what to do with horror comedy. Like it's just this foreign, it's difficult to sell and do well. And this, I thought actually did it really well because it was mixing the humor and the horror together, but simultaneously keeping them separately. And I was impressed that Netflix did this Amazon. This is an Amazon one. Is this Amazon?
It is Amazon.
Or was this?
Amazon.
Okay. Yeah. Because again, horror comedies are a harder sell. So when you find a company that's willing to kind of take a risk on one, it's a big thing. So yeah, I thought it was fun.
It had a lot of funny stuff. I liked the heart to it a lot. Like I thought they got the heart right. I guess so many of the 80s type movies feel like the person's definitely wasn't in the 80s and the details are always just so generic to me that sometimes I get a little bit meh. But I think my problem with it was just like, if you're ripping off movies from that time period, that could be fun now, but like it's so close to movies from 3 years ago that I actually did have a problem with that. Like I was like, okay, this is literally Happy Death Day and Final Girls. I mean, you're going back in time to save your mother, and Final Girls is you're going to save your mother into the movie. So I again, I didn't think it was pulled off poorly. And I think it handled the horror scenes maybe better than Final Girls, some of the horror, the actual horror scenes in that. But that's just so recent for me. Like, it's hard for me to get excited about saying like, if this came 10 years from now, cool. That's one thing. Again, minor complaint. It's still a cool movie. And it's not one that I would be a Grinch about telling people not to see it. It was cool, but.
And I will say my first thought, and this is such an underseen film, so I'm going to proselytize it here and tell everybody to go see it. Detention.
Yeah, Detention's amazingly original.
At a slasher time travel movie, Detention all the way. So this is still doing something fun. It's not doing something that we have not seen before. And I will say Final Girls, I think, is such
that has the best heart. Yeah, that has the best heart of any. And I think Happy Death Day is just like a modern, perfect, like kind of meta film. The one thing it does do differently that I did appreciate humor wise is Kierna Shipka when she goes back in time and she's obviously with her parents who are now young people. It gets on like the social things that aren't now socially relevant, and that's probably one of the first films I've seen to kind of hone in on those jokes, and they're actually pretty funny. Like
those were great moments, like where they would say something that is now deeply considered to be off color, and she's taken aback by it and trying to figure out how to address it but still be true to who she is in 2023. Like it's amazing the way that they kind of handled that in this. The ending for me was a little like, okay, like when you actually find out who the killer is, like any given slasher, it was like, oh, okay. But it's the journey to get there that definitely carried me along.
And Kiernan Shipka's really great,
She was fun
actress. Okay, another one we both saw that I kind of wrote to you saying you should definitely see this before, because this is, I think it's going to become a new rotation favorite for many, many people, and that's Dark Harvest, directed by David Slade.
So this one, this was shot in Winnipeg. I know a lot of the people involved in this one. And I had loved the book for this. So I was really excited when I heard that this was becoming a movie. I'm a bit mixed on how it turned out, but I love this mythology so much. And what I love for this is it swung for the fences. Like, it is a 1950s period piece that is basically kind of like a mashup between The Purge and Pumpkinhead. The whole concept of it, it's 1950s, this really small Midwestern town. And according to their local lore, every Halloween, this creature named Sawtooth Jack rises from the pumpkin patch, and he kills people. Like, he is fucking brutal. And if he gets to the church by midnight, it will just destroy the town. Like, the town will fall into some type of absolute depression and just be completely destroyed for the next year. But if some boy in town, it's left up to the high school seniors, can kill Sawtooth Jack before he kills him, he will become the king of the town. The town will have another year of prosperity. The kid's family gets $25,000. He gets a car. And according to town mythos, all of the boys who have achieved this, who have actually killed Sawtooth Jack, have gone on to do amazing stuff. They form bands. They're television people now. They're writing books in New York City. So they all themselves get this amazing good fortune out of killing Sawtooth Jack. And so it becomes this competition in the town they call the Run every year around Halloween time, where all of the boys gather to one night, and basically the town locks itself down, but the boys all go out to kill Sawtooth Jack, and it's a competition to kill him. But at the same time, he's brutal. He kills a lot of people in the process.
And he's one of the best designed creatures I've seen him forever. Like, and especially for a Halloween based character, he's fantastic. And like, you can see multiple movies being made around a creature like that. Like, my only issue was just with the script and the characters, some of the character stuff. It felt like that's where it was let down. And this is like, if this is somebody's favorite of the year, I will totally get it, because it earns that in the direction. David Slade directs the hell out of it, and it just moves, and it's like really well put together. But there's just character things and things that feel a bit wonky as it goes, especially as you kind of head towards the last act character wise.
I felt like that was editing. Because that, and this, who knows what the hell went wrong with production on it. But that said, like, for me, it was an ensemble piece. There's one boy that we're following, but it's very much an ensemble piece about probably 6 different people in the town. But we do not start getting some of the other stories of those 6 people until the 3rd act. And then all of a sudden it's like, who the hell is this guy, and why are we following him? And that was where it kicked in for me. Was I felt like we were supposed to be following these people's stories from the beginning, but for some reason they were only put into that 3rd act. So I saw it more as like an editing issue.
Well, my guess was that was a script structural problem, but again, it could be either. It could be, again, we're making it sound like it's really has lots of problems. I think for a lot of people who aren't thinking so micro, it's not going to have those problems. I think it's going to be just as fun, exciting. Wild ride.
Cool mythos. The mythos behind it is great. It's got some really good gore. There were definitely like some fucking jaw drop. Oh my God, I can't believe it just happened. Like, Sawtooth Jack is brutal. And I love the idea that we've kind of got this new character, that it is like a Sam Hain type Halloween, kind of embodiment in this villain. So yeah, there was so much about this that I absolutely loved. That don't let us saying, the characters felt clunky in the 3rd act stop you from seeing it. It was a wild ride. And this was a big production. That's the other thing, is like, right now we are in this age of like, horror is made for under $2 million. This did not feel like a $2 million budget. I mean, this was a period piece with period cars and a massive cast. It's basically like an entire town. And Sawtooth Jack looked amazing. Like, it was a gorgeous creature.
Yeah, I would call it the must-see film of this Halloween season, even if it's not as big as some of the other ones that might be theatrical. I think it's the one that like horror fans really should seek out, because it will make you feel the feeling you want to feel at October. It's like it will go watching Sleepy Hollow or something.
It did. It had a Sleepy Hollow. That's it. It had small town America Gothic Halloween feel. And that's exactly what I needed.
And I believe that's when you still have to pay. It's like streaming, but you have to still pay. It's still,
I think it was like $5.99 on Amazon.
But
yeah,
like
it
I
wasn't
said, worth it, I think.
So I'm going to jump to another new one that I watched. And this is actually my last new one that I watched. I'll save all of my old titles for deep cuts. And then I've got some books to talk about as well. But the last new one that I watched is The Mill, which is on Hulu. And this just came to Hulu I think it was last Friday. This is directed by Sean King O'Grady, who did We Need to Do Something.
I really like that movie.
I really liked that movie as well. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm in for this. This is really small, but this was really compelling. And there was never a time where I in any way lost interest in it. It stars Lowray Howery, and he plays an office worker at this company called Mallard. And it's definitely portrayed as some type of massive billion-dollar company that controls everything. Think like an Amazon, where they just, they have fingers in basically every element of your life in some capacity. And he has been working for this company, but then out of nowhere, and this is where the movie starts, he wakes up in an open air prison cell. So it's like concrete walls, dirt floor, sky overhead. And then in the middle of the room is this old grinding stone that goes in a circle. And all of a sudden, this automated, think like Alexa, wakes up and broadcasts on one of the walls and says, we notice that you have not been as productive at work. So we're putting you here so that you can realize your value to the company and realize your true potential. And it says that he has to do 50, he has to push the stone around the mill 50 times a day is his quota, but that you realize that he's in this massive complex with all these other cells there. And that even though that 50 is his quota, they expect him to do more than just the bare minimum. And that every day, whoever has the lowest number revolutions will be killed. And every night at 2 a.m., he's hearing screams. So he knows somebody is being killed. And he has no idea why he's there. He has no idea what's going on. He has a pregnant wife at home. And then every couple of minutes, this like Alexa type computer comes on and talks to him in very corporate speak about productivity and increasing your workflow and knowing your value at the company. And Mallard believes in you as an individual. And in between, while he's doing the revolution, it's running commercials for Mallard products. Like it feels very Amazon-y. And he is talking to his neighbor next door, played by Patrick Fischler, who is in the cell next to his. The only other person that we really ever see is a security guard played by Pat Healy. And so the whole thing, So it's all about office culture and kind of the personality draining style of working in a massive corporate environment and all of the office speak that goes along with it, kind of the techno speak of being proactive and take control and optionalize your workspace and things like that. But it's set in basically like a torture chamber. And with him trying to figure out how to get out of this, is there a way out of it, knowing that people around him are being killed constantly, and specifically realizing that if the entire company is run basically by a computer and a computer is running this thing on the wall, how do you beat the algorithm? If it's telling you that, whoever's lowest is going to get killed, how do you beat that algorithm? And so this was, it's not huge. It's not gonna, there was no lobbing off of heads. Something is not going to burst out of a pumpkin patch, but it definitely kept me interested the entire time. And it had a really good statement behind it on corporate culture. Yeah, and that is The Mill, which is currently on Hulu.
Yeah, so the icon popped up a couple of days ago, but didn't know what genre it was.
Yeah, it's horror, thriller, science fiction, dystopian. It's a lot.
I've watched a few more things, so I'll do a couple together here. A couple origin stories, which I'm not usually a big fan of. One that's not getting great reviews, Pet Sematary Bloodlines, directed by Lindsay Anderson Beer. A lot of people are being pretty harsh on this, I noticed online. This was I think Paramount Plus or something. It's interesting because it's really a young Judd Crandall. So it's set in 1969. It kind of explains a lot about why Ludlow has this evil. You'll get a couple interesting theories in there. You have Henry Thomas playing his father, who's an interesting character in this. David Duchovny playing a parent of a war vet who has come home but hasn't really come home, is dead, and he's brought him back. and is what starts the evil, basically. Pam Grier, fucking Jackie Brown, as one of the townspeople who know about the evil and kind of work together. They kind of have a secret group, which I thought that was kind of the most interesting part. And there's one of my favorite movies of the year is a film called How to Blow Up a Pipeline. Not really a horror film, but just a really good film.
Great.
And the actor in that, the native actor, his name's Forrest Goodluck, who I really liked in that movie, and I like him in this too, is in it. And so anyway, I just like that because I was like, oh, it's E.T. from, we've got Henry from E.T., we've got Fox Mulder and Jackie Brown all work in Pet Sematary for us. But surprisingly, this will surprise a lot of people, I kind of enjoyed watching this movie. It's very nasty, it's very mean, the kills are very hard and stuff, and it's a it's a bit of a sometimes over edited, you know what I mean, and moves really fast story wise, but like I actually kind of enjoyed the tone. I think a lot of people get upset with movies like this, I think often because they love the original world so much, and I don't really care. Like, to be perfectly honest, I like Pet Sematary the movie a lot. The sequel's okay too, but I'm not like invested. This isn't my world. I thought some of the kind of weird swings for the kind of stuff about the town was kind of fun, and it was kind of like, I wouldn't give this a big rec, but I must admit, like, just personally, I enjoyed how nasty it was. And, sometimes you're looking for that kind of movie. So somebody else, I know another friend kind of enjoyed that side, and I've seen a lot of my other friends give it 2 stars. So, I thought it was well directed. I thought Lindsay Anderson Beer, she did a good job, actually, just like with the way it looks and feels. I just feel that some of the edits make it move in a way that is just too quick, for what it is. So, worth checking out. Make up your own decision. And then the other one, which I don't even know if it came out. I got an email sent to me and didn't say embargo, so fuck it. It was like, hey, here's a screener of the new HOUSE LLC, the Carmichael Manor.
Yeah, I don't think I got the same email. I don't think there's an embargo.
I mean, and if there is, too bad,
if
because
not,
don't send me a screener. Anyway, it's coming to Shudder either now or soon. And I was the person, same director as the other. So this is part number 4 of these films, the HOUSE movies. And I was the person who had no interest in these movies multiple times. I think you told me to watch them. And then
I did.
Yeah, finally.
It took like 10 years for you to watch them.
It took me being really bored on maybe last Halloween. And I watched the first 3 all in a row, I think, because I really liked the first one, then I rather liked the second, and then I rather liked the third. And it's the same thing. This is quite different in the sense that it is partly an origin and partly moves the action from the Hell House and after the events of Hell House to a manor called the Carmichael Manor, kind of nearby, a big estate where no one has lasted more than 4 days. And these 2, a documentarian and her girlfriend, and then her brother, decide to go in there and try to get to the kind of learn more about what happened in this brutal murder in this building. And that stuff's okay. And then it starts to link to the events of Hell House, because they find an old clock and, kind of goes Amityville a bit. It takes a while because, I found footage. I put up a bit of a wall as I start watching these movies and the character stuff, because they have to work so hard for why the hell are we recording and all that stuff. But once the weird clowns and dark figures walking down hallways, I'm in and I'm having fun, and it's creepy. And I'm like watching this movie going, why has this director not been given a VHS segment yet? He's made 4 really fun, creepy Hell House movies, and he deserves it. And so I think the scares and stuff all still work, and it starts opening up a bit more of the cult stuff and the conspiracy stuff. So fans of this, this will be a fun one to close on. I find them hard to rank. I think the first is still the best because I didn't expect it, but I liked all of them. They've all had some element that I've found kind of fun. So
same. Yeah, I have enjoyed every single one. I'm excited to see this.
Yeah,
so the first one, I watched the first one because one of my friends from Phoenix, Katie Cage, had recommended me to check it out after I had done a found footage panel. And she had told me how amazing it was. And I was like, okay, I'm in. And I remember I watched it like the next night in the hotel, and I had no idea what to expect and thought it was amazing. So yeah, it was just, I loved it.
You will enjoy this. Watch it on the plane.
Excellent. I've already downloaded movies to watch on the plane. You know what I just got? I got the Jeff Goldblum one, Mr. Frost. That's like really hard to find. I have downloaded that onto my computer to watch on the plane. So if you're seated next to me, you can. Yeah,
I've been planning to watch that for a while too. I think I might have seen it on VHS when I was younger, but I have not a good version of it to watch, but I don't know if there's a better version now. Maybe
this one looks nice.
Okay.
I mean, I won't reveal my sources, but yeah, I definitely have it sitting on my laptop now. And I was going to go ahead and download one more to watch off my completely legal site that I use. So yeah, only the ones that aren't available do I do that with. This is really hard to find. So in which case I will find a way to see it. But yeah, what else? Did you watch anything else, or are those the new ones?
I'll tell you, these are, I won't go into. There's the new TV show called John Carpenter's Suburban Screams, which was the big.
How was it?
Okay, so it's not very good, but I haven't watched the one he directed yet, because he directed the last of them. Only the very I thought the first one, as I was watching, I was like, oh, this could be Carpenterish. I couldn't tell. And then when I realized, I looked it up in an article, he did like number 5 out of 5. The first 2 aren't bad. It's a little exploitive. It feels a bit like those A&E type shows where it's like part interview. So half of the episode is just an interview with somebody telling their true version of, oh, I really used a Ouija board and talked to this ghost, and like a story they truly believe. And then the reconstructions are bit better production value than, you know, an A&E type thing, or one of those, you know, Ghost Hunters or whatever.
I feel like I would want to reverse that. Like I'd want to see the reconstruction, and then I would want to hear somebody talk about.
It's all mixed up. It's not straight. I'm just saying that those are the 2 things that you're watching. The recreations are, you know, they kind of look like real movies at times. Like there's some pretty nice stuff, but they just, you know, there's something about the actual stories themselves so far where I was just like, oh, okay. I mean, they are probably based in some truth, but one is really a guy who, you know, really thinks he's contacted by ghosts and stuff. And there's something about it that feels like, you know, a lot of emotion in the interview. I was just like, very like, about them, but I will probably watch them all just so I can see what Carpenter directed it from his couch.
This is Peacock, right?
These are on Peacock.
Wait,
yes.
He directed
he
it from
did.
his
So he didn't
couch?
even go in person. He was on his couch like a video game, and he was just like giving notes through a TV. And I've seen behind the scenes stuff of how he did it. It's pretty wild. So you know, Carpenter didn't even have to go to set. Anyway, so I will report back when I watch his one, because, you know, I'm always hoping for good Carpenter, don't get me wrong, but it's watchable, and like, you know, it's a good kind of diversion. It would be good on a plane because it's that kind of, you know, short form. It's somewhat information, somewhat.
You know what? I just see they have an episode on Bunny Man, and that's one of the local legends from where I grew up. We always heard, it's where I moved right after I graduated from college, Virginia Tech. I moved to Fairfax, Virginia, and taught there for 2 years before I moved up to New York City. And Bunny Man is all Fairfax. So I'm going to have to watch that episode just to see what they did with the Bunny Man.
They're all different directors. And then I won't go into it until I finish the whole thing. But I did watch last night the first episode of Flannagan's Fall of the House of Usher on Netflix. And
I've heard it's amazing.
It looked fantastic so far. And also really, really well timed, because it's literally a supernatural, as far as I can tell. It basically is a supernatural version of that show that just ended, Succession, because it feels very much like, even the theme music at the start, I was like, oh wait, this almost feels like a riff on Succession, but with Poe, because all the children of this very rich man have all died when this movie opens, and obviously we're going to learn how it all happens. He's Roderick Usher. Him and his sister have amassed this massive fortune, and it was really cool when it opened, because it opens with some Poe. And just hearing Poe's language in a kind of high-end quality looking show, not just like only Corman was usually the person doing it, was really exciting, and seeing it kind of contemporized. And so now I'm very interested where it's going to go, just from one episode. The first episode really sets up how the story's being told. It's this guy basically confessing to everything about his life to the cop who's been or the lawyer who's been trying to nail him. It looks like it's all the familiar Flanagan castmates. So I'm very much looking forward to finishing that when I don't have to watch all the Halloween movies. But yeah,
you were doing such better homework than I am. I watched like 2 of them, and I was like, I think I remember the rest.
Yeah, no, these are. Yeah. I promise I'm really doing it because I got into like this one. There was 4 of them in a row. I wanted to try to find the continuity. It was really for me at that point. I don't need to do this for an episode of a show, but I was kind of enjoying it. So.
Okay, so I'm going to do some books, and I will run through these really quick, but I've got a bunch of books that I have read over the last month and a half that I hadn't talked about on the show yet, that I at least wanted to put in people's minds. I ended up talking about it a lot on our Patreon show because I got really excited, but Raw Shark Text. I am late to the party on this one. This is from 2007. But this was my rabbit hole for a number of weeks, and I absolutely loved this book. This is like David Lynch type level of like layers and, you know, rabbit holes and breadcrumbing in there where you're having to try to figure shit out and you're having to put puzzles together in your own brain. It most reminded me of something like I'm thinking of Ending Things, where I'm piecing together the psyche of a very problematic protagonist, multiple versions of the same protagonist as well. So this one was awesome, kind of Memento-ish in that you're getting somebody who has memory issues. But yeah, this one was just really cool. So that is from 2007, Raw Shark Texts. Okay, next up, I found this over the summer and finally read this one, and it will probably be one of my fave books of the year, Boys in the Valley by Philip Fracassi. And this is, it's a period piece. It's set, gosh, I don't even remember when it's an older one. I want to say like 1930s or so. But it's about a boys orphanage, a very isolated orphanage run by monks in the middle of, I think it's supposed to be kind of mid Eastern Coast, like Pennsylvania type area. And they're very isolated. The boys are kind of mistreated. It's a very strict environment. And one night, the local townspeople bring this man in, say that he has been involved in an incident and he's dying, and they need one of the monks to save him because it's the closest place. And one of the monks used to be an army surgeon. And they bring the man in, and he is clearly possessed as fuck with something. And then from there, the evil just kind of spreads. This has a when evil lurks quality to it in how kind of extreme it gets. But because it's in a boys' orphanage, it's kind of Lord of the Flies-ish all at the same time. I would be shocked if this does not get optioned somewhere. And if it hasn't yet, all of the filmmakers out there, you should definitely read this and look into it because there was just something so fun about it. And dark. It's just a dark one, but it moved. Okay, Hemlock Island was another one that I rather enjoyed. This was by Kelly Armstrong, new one that just came out about a woman who owns this super nice island in the middle of Lake Champion, I think. It was one of the Great Lakes. I think it was Lake Champion. And she owns this basically a private island with a house on it that she rents out as an Airbnb. But suddenly all this weird, creepy shit is happening on the island. And she thinks that it's some of her prior renters are like fucking around with her, like leaving bones places and blood and things like that. But then she goes to start cleaning it up with some family members, and you realize that they are trapped on the island and that there's something else much bigger going on. This one I thought was really fun. And then the big one that I'm sure this has been optioned. Like, I guarantee this was optioned before it ever even came out. Might end up being my book of the year, Mr. Magic by Kirsten White. The setup of this is about a children's show. And it uses that kind of Berenstain Bear theory of like multiverses, where it's supposedly, and it's got elements of Channel Zero, this season 1 of Channel Zero, where it's this weird, messed up kids show that this entire generation of adults remember. Like, oh my God, do you remember Mr. Magic? And they all remember that something happened on the last episode that the entire show got shut down, but they all remember something different. Like some people, and it causes internet debates of like, some people remember that there was a fire. Oh no, I remember that like the whole thing exploded. No, I remember that a person stabbed somebody, and they all have different memories, but nobody can find the actual footage of what happened on that live episode. And now some 30 years later, so that was like 1980s, some like 30, 40 years later, they get word the show is coming back, and they're reuniting the cast from that last episode to talk about what actually happened. And that's all I'll give you for that one. It's just a really cool story that I guarantee some studio has picked up because it's too delicious and rich of a mythos not to.
Sounds like Channel Zero for sure.
Yeah, it's very Channel Zero, but it's got, because it is about that kid's show, but it's got mixes of this like Berenstain Bearsness, and it feels like a Captain Kangaroo. Did you guys have Captain Kangaroo?
No.
Captain, I don't know if that
Skippy,
may have been
the bush kangaroo.
Okay, I can't remember if we had Captain Chesapeake as well, which was local access. I think Captain Kangaroo was nationwide. I can't remember if that was one of our local ones that we had in the DC area or not. But yeah, where it is like this host show and there's clowns and sketches and stuff like that. But yeah, that is Mr. Magic. Holy fuck, that was a fun read.
And the book's called Mr. Magic.
Mr. Magic is the name of the book.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. So that's kind of my fall reading thus far. I'm on a plane ride for like 10 hours over the next couple of days with Elric and Brian Sauer. So I'll probably read a bunch more books when I'm not watching Mr. Frost.
It's hard to watch movies in, I feel, the economy seats because, like, depending on the plane, they're so close. I can't even get the laptop open in a lot of those seats to look at without getting a neck, cramp or something.
I gotta say, so when this is like the greatest moment of my life. It was only a 2-hour flight from LA to Portland, and they were doing that thing where they're like, it's an oversold flight, we're really full, can people please just come check bags? And nobody was checking their bags. And so I immediately popped up and I was like, I don't, my clothes all come from thrift stores, I got nothing of value in here, check my bag, lose it all you want. And so I popped right up and she immediately goes, we're upgrading you to first class. And so I got to fly to Portland by myself in first class. It was like, that was my zenith. Like, I can never come down from that moment. It was only 2 hours, but they brought me free cheese. And that's all I need is you've brought me free cheese.
That's
and I'm
good.
in.
I'll bring you free cheese on this next one. I'll just a giant block of Colby that I'm going to just put on your lap.
Show up with a couple of cubes of cheese and I'm a happy camper for the day. So.
Well, it's going to happen. All right. Well, we look forward to seeing some people in Knoxville, and we're now going to talk about a super cray Lovecraftian inspired movie.
Yes. Let's bring on Joe Lynch. Tonight's Colors of the Dark is brought to you by The White Vault, a new horror podcast set within the chilling polar night. The White Vault, journey into the Arctic with an international rescue and repair team sent to locate the source of a mysterious signal. Trapped in the white wastes, the team make a miraculous discovery, but also find they might not be alone. What horror lurks beneath the ice? If you enjoy Alien or The Thing, The White Vault makes you feel like you're actually with the team as they march through the sunless Arctic snowscape, polar bears and all. It features a lot of jump scares, and the creators of the show work to ensure scientific, linguistic, oral, and cultural accuracy. Future seasons of The White Vault follow other stories, such as an archaeology team that survives an avalanche in Patagonia, and the spin-off series in the Antarctic, England, Japan, and 1700s China. The White Vault's main story recently concluded, and it's available now, so you can hear all of the collected recordings for free without having to wait on new releases. This is a fully independent production. The show is created by a 2-person team plus the actors. The popularity of the show led them to being able to make The White Vault and other fiction stories their full-time job. The White Vault has won countless awards, over 30 Audioverse awards, in addition to a Webby Award in 2021, and 3 Webby honorees for Best Music and Best Sound Design. Find The White Vault however you listen to podcasts, or find out more about the show at thewhitevault.com. Subscribe now and delve into the waiting horrors. Tonight's Colors of the Dark is also brought to you by the upcoming film Soulmates. Another Manny Haley production is making its way to theaters on October 20th, just in time for Halloween. Soulmates follows 2 unsuspecting strangers who find themselves participating in a twisted new dating service, led by The Matchmaker, that forces 2 singles inside a nightmarish maze designed to help them find their soulmate or die trying. Be sure to find your way to theaters to check out The Soulmate, starring Annie Alonso, Charlie Weber, and Neil McDonough.
Okay, we are coming back with some lovely body swap horror with an old friend from back in the day. Started shows at the very same time, really. Mr. Joe Lynch, welcome to the show.
Hi everybody. I'm so glad to be back, but in another iteration, because it seems like since the good old Geek Nation days, we've had multiple iterations of your show, whereas we've been stuck doing the movie Crypt, various guys. Maybe, you know, we've attained a host with the dog, with Arwen the dog, but we're still up to our old wily ways. But it is nice. It is nice though, because like as we were kind of talking offline before, I don't mind saying full disclosure, I got into a bad accident earlier today, and you know, after I made sure that everybody was fine, I was like, you know, the thing that I have to do tonight is talk to these guys so badly, because not to promote my movie, but you know, just there's nothing better than shooting the shit and chewing the fat with like-minded psychos like yourselves, especially when we only get, especially with you guys together, we only get those few scant moments when we're either crossing paths at the Burbank 15 or outside of the new bed.
Yeah, that was last
and
night.
it's like, I want to continue talking, but you know, we're going to our car, you're going inside. So this is where we can save space. It's a nice oasis. But as I said before, if I do nod off or start speaking in weird languages, then at least people have context.
I'll text some people and be like, go check on Joe, please. So,
yes.
I probably won't be able to tell Joe. I'll just be like, I don't know. He's fully asleep, but you know, it still sounds good to me.
Blah, blah, blah. Suitable Flesh, October 27th. Blah, 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 blah.
Horny.
So is Suitable Flesh just doing like a theatrical, right? You guys are doing a couple theaters?
Yeah, theatrical and VOD. It was originally going to be just theatrical, but you know, obviously with the strike and the lack of promotion that the rest of the cast and the rest of the, you know, at least up until recently, the rest of the crew could do. Now that the writer's strike has lifted, thank God. Now Dennis is going around and kind of, you know, like hitting the podcast pavement and doing the dog and pony show with me.
I spent my last weekend with him at Lovecraft Fest, which I'll talk about in a sec.
Ooh, I can't wait to hear it. But yeah, so it is going to be out in theaters and VOD, which is nice because, you know, for a film like this, we recently played at Fantastic Fest, and they put us in the midnight slot. And, you know, I was always a little scared. Well, their version of the midnight slot, which was 11 p.m. We actually didn't start screening until 12:15 because typical Fantastic Fest, you know, there's a lot of shenanigans that happens before that. And, you know, I've now seen the movie in various times since June when we started this Fleshtival tour. And I've noticed that the movie plays differently at different times. And I'm sure you guys have dealt with that before, where, you know, I've now deduced that there are ample screening times for this movie pending how you're going to watch it. Now, if you're going to watch this in a theater, on the, you know, in the cinema on the big screen in full Cthulhu scope, 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, perfect time. You're getting out of work, you just, you know, you're catching up with friends, maybe you have a date, but then when the movie's over, you have a little bit of downtime. You know, you can get to your car, make out in your car, whatever. You can go home, see where it goes from there, or go out and discuss, you know, all the weird themes that are going on in the movie. That's fine. That's the cinema experience, 7 o'clock. If you're at home, I say this is more of a 9 o'clock viewing, because now you've had dinner, a glass of wine, you're sitting with your, you know, your partner or someone you're trying to hook up with, who knows. And then by the time the movie's over, it's time for bed. You might as well let the amorous ambiance of the movie kind of wash over you, and you take it into the bedroom. I don't see, and I think you guys would agree with me, I don't like when people go instant midnight movie. I think midnight movies as a label have to be earned. I think that most of the midnight movies that I've gone to are movies that I have seen multiple times, that I want to experience either again with friends, with, you know, once you step into that cinema, you're all friends. But I always feel like those are movies that are better in like a repertory fashion than they are when you're watching it for the first time. Because most times I want to soak in the context. I want to see, if this is the first time I'm seeing it, I want to kind of take it all in from an objective standpoint, not, you know, sit there and go, holy Christ, it's 11, you know, no, it's 1:30 in the morning and things are just getting going. Like that's brutal for the film. And I noticed when we played it at Fantastic Fest, you know, not that people were nodding off, but when, you know, if you've seen the movie, which you guys haven't, thank you, you know, things really kick in that like second half to third act, you know, which was designed, but I don't want to get people's, you know, adrenaline going at 1:30 in the morning or maybe later. So I would much rather see a movie like, Return of the Living Dead or even Possession. I know where these movies are going. I have like the track numbers and the chapters of all the madness that's going to happen. That makes me go, I can hold out. I don't have to be Brian Collins and fall asleep in the movie 5 minutes in.
Oh,
well, I actually think Possession.
He knows it.
Oh, he knows. No, I sat next to him when we saw Climax, and he was literally out in like 20 minutes. And
That's what I mean.
The end, I was like, "Did you enjoy it, Brian?" And he was like, "Yeah, it was great. It was great."
No, but I think movies get labeled.
He still absorbs some of them.
They get labeled in there because of the bonkers moments usually, and so if something is wild. But I agree. I think Possession is similar though to your structure where you can do it because you've seen it before. But if you were going to it for the first time, I don't think Midnight's a good place because it is this like intense, weird drama for a lot of it. And then it's only really at the end that it comes off the rails. And by then it's 2 a.m., 2:10 a.m., which is...
We've had big, long discussions about Midnight Movie because, I mean, we've been doing this now for almost 11 years together that we've been co-hosting stuff together. So we've seen many a Midnight Movie together, and neither of us are really equipped for that anymore. Just kind of, where our lives are. Like, I'm in bed at 11:30 hitting myself in the face with a book I'm trying to read. So the idea of going out to a movie at that time, it's just not quite there anymore unless it is wild and crazy enough through the entire thing, or it's a quick or like heavy jump scares I can do at midnight. But yeah, it's a particular type of movie. We had gone, gosh, it's been probably 6 years, like right before the pandemic. We went to see The Beyond on a midnight movie slot. And you think The Beyond midnight movie, it's really cool. It's bonkers. It is so fucking slowly paced between those bonkers moments with that like languid music underneath all of it. Even while there's, acid rolling towards that poor redhead girl who didn't deserve to die like that.
Or the tarantula, the tarantula fingers and shit like that.
It's all this like slow drifting languid music underneath, and everybody was out cold. Like it was like a theater of people snoring.
I'm glad that you brought that up because the first time that I had seen The Beyond was this is like the perfect example. I'm glad you brought that up as an exhibit A of what, if you're going to see a midnight movie, try to see that midnight movie or said midnight movie, have it seen before you experience it for the first time. When Tarantino put out The Beyond, like what was it, the
Rolling Thunder.
Rolling Thunder Pictures. That was like the second movie he had done. Detroit 9000 was the first one, and he had kind of a lock on the Angelica Film Center in New York. That's where all of those films played. And long story short, my brother and I were so excited because we had seen Zombie, we had seen Gates of Hell. You couldn't find The Beyond, and you couldn't find it Letterboxd anywhere. And here it was playing for one night only at the Angelica. We drove 3 hours into the city, so stoked, never saw it before. And the big draw was they were handing out for the first 50 people free eyeballs. Yeah. There were these eyeballs, like the kind of eyeballs that like you sloshed around and they were always looking up, but they said The Beyond on the bottom. So we're like, oh, we got to get those. We get there and the usher who's there is like, you guys, it's only 10 o'clock. I don't know why you guys are here early, but like, but we're here first. We want the eyeballs. And the guy's like, maybe you should come back. So we go to this burger place called Silver Spurs, which was right down the street. Great burger joint, not there anymore. And when we came back, the line was around the block. And we're sitting there going, 23, 24, 25, 36, 37, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52. Fuck! Like we were so pissed. And right when they opened up the doors, the usher came over to us. And I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but he kind of takes us by the hand, brings us all the way to the front and goes, these guys were first, and handed us these eyeballs like they were golden tickets. We were like, oh my God, but also embarrassed as fuck because all these other people were like, what the hell? We go downstairs, and if you guys have ever been to the Angelica, you go down those like long, like gates of hell escalators. We sit down, we're so excited. Fucking Tarantino and Calvin Klein are sitting in front of us. We're like, this is mind blowing. Both of us were out in 20 minutes. Like, gosh, so excited because you're right. It is a slow paced film. I mean, most Fulci films, maybe except for like New York Ripper, are somewhat moderately paced, if you will.
They are.
And
they have
not
Yeah,
they have ebbs
like,
and flows.
It's like a dream that happens in between
Yes.
these like crazy nightmare moments. Like it's just really kind of it floats. Yeah.
Now, if I had seen it if I had already seen it once and experienced it and knew what was coming, I would have seen like, all right, crazy blind girl looking down that long road and really realizing, okay, the acid scenes are coming soon, or one of the most amazing final shots of all time is going to be at the end of this. I had no clue. I would have been more amped to know that like when you go to a good concert, they're going to play Welcome to the Jungle at the very end, during the encore. That's going to happen. So you have to wait for that. And we woke up again maybe at the last 10-15 minutes, and we're like, what? Oh, God damn it. When we went back years later to the New Beverly and they played at the midnight show, we knew everything was going on. We were up, the whole night. Midnight movies, I think, are best consumed when they are films that you can see as good old friends, and like they're like having a good conversation with someone, not someone that you want to meet for the first time, like the Beyond for the first time. Yeah, that was a bit of a bummer, but I got the eyeballs. I still
That's
have
good.
That's the main thing. Well, the lesson is Suitable Flesh. Watch it earlier. I would say watch it at 2 p.m. Then it's done by about 3:40. You can still visit your psychiatrist right after, for a little quickie. However you want to play it, depends on your psychiatrist. They can't all be Heather Graham. Yeah. So, but let's talk about the movie.
Yeah, I will quickly say, I mentioned up top that I just got back from Lovecraft Fest. So I was there. I did the keynote on cosmic horror, and I showed Glorious, which was amazing. I wish you could have come to
how did that go? How was the crowd?
It was packed. And I mean, they showed Glorious at like 1:00 on a Sunday, and it was packed, and it was so packed for the keynote. I was just shocked. Like it was like my euphoric moment, because it was me up there just geeking out about tropes of cosmic horror and what makes something cosmic and the history of it as a subgenre, and just a packed audience. So it was just beautiful. Like it's what I wish all of my college classes were. And so yeah, and I had seen Suitable Flesh played twice there. They played at 9:00 on the opening night, and then they played it again Sunday night. They did an encore performance, and both of them were packed shows. And then also I was on a panel with Dennis Paoli, and it was me and Clay McLeod Chaplin, who's been on our show before, who's a friend of mine. We're both from the same part of Virginia, and Dennis Paoli. And it was all about how to bring Lovecraft to screen. Like, what do you take from Lovecraft to kind of transition him to screen? And so, yeah, it was awesome to kind of see Dennis in his element, talking about it. So yeah, how did this script go from Dennis to you to Amp? Like, kind of walk us through how this, kind of came to be. I'm always, this is my favorite question that I ask filmmakers, because it's like, I'm trying to like figure out the lament configuration myself, and there's never two answers.
Hold on. You gotta, as we all know, there is no right path. There is no, certain slide of the circle on the lament configuration that lets all the hooks come out, just especially with film. You never, very nice. You never know where, like, what's going to be the proper path that's going to either get you the money, get you the talent, get you the resource that you need. This one, it was literally 6 weeks into the pandemic, and I was going through a really rough time. I had just, kind of survived Point Blank with Frank Grillo and Anthony Mackie, and that was not a fruitful experience at all. And I really wanted to get back to horror, but I didn't know what that process was going to be. I didn't have the right project. And then I got an email from Barbara Crampton. And, when you get an email from Barbara Crampton, you immediately open it like, what the hell is this? And she had sent me this email and just said like, hey, in typical Barbara Crampton fashion. And she sent this script, and it was the thing on the doorstep, and it was Dennis's script. And she said, would you be interested in doing this? Now, I had conversations with Stuart before he passed about this script, because this was his getting the band back together project that he was going to do with Dennis and Brian. And I believe Barbara was going to be involved as well. And obviously it didn't work out. But when he was talking about it, it was, to me, and this was at the time when it was called The Thing on the Doorstep. And I was excited just as a fan, when you hear like, holy shit, he's going back in, he's going back to cosmic horror. That's going to be great. Yeah. And he's got all the, the regular players. This is awesome. So when she sent it to me, I had mixed feelings. And the first mixed feeling was, fuck, Stuart's not going to do this. I don't know what came over me, but I, like, as such a disciple, and then, you know, I in one form or another can say a colleague of his, like when you have a conversation with Stuart, he tended to give you notes on movies that you did that you're like, dude, I can't go back into the edit. The movie's out. It's been out for 2 years. But he talked to you about the movies, and I could sit there and talk to him for days about dolls, you know, like that alone, or like tell me everything about space truckers, you know, like I knew his work enough that I could just on a dime just start talking about Stuck, you know, or let's go into King of the Ants. But when he talks to you about it, and he looks at you when he talked to you about it, it was daunting and exciting all at the same time. And at that moment, when Barbara sent that, that was the moment that I said, because I hadn't seen Stuart, you know, before he passed in maybe 8 months, 9 months or whatever, before the last dinner. That was the moment I knew he died. Yeah, like, God, I haven't even thought about that in a long time, but that was the moment where you just, you know, when you just have that moment where you go like, oh yeah, that really happened. And it was, and then, you know, and then Barbara, when I wrote her back, I went like, are you kidding me? And she goes, no, I spoke to both Dennis and Stuart about this, and supposedly they mentioned your name. And I thought immediately, God, like there's a shot from Detroit Rock City where, no, 3 O'clock High, where the camera swoops down over like 100 names and then lands on Casey Zemeckis' name. I was like, ah, that's what happened. They went like, pass, Joe Lynch. And she's like, no, like, no, your name came up multiple times. I'm like, oh yeah, sure, okay, whatever. But then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give it a shot. I'll read it. And reading it, it was interesting because it was me reading it not as a fan, or just not as just, you know, like an ardent lover of, you know, these filmmakers. It was, oh shit, now I have to put it through the process in my brain and see what comes out. Like, do I want to shoot this? Do I want to direct this? Do I want to craft this together? And by the end, I was really excited, except for one thing, and that was the gender. Because I had read the Thing on the Doorstep before. You know, I went on a huge Lovecraft kick for years after, you know, seeing Reanimator and going, who the fuck is H.P. Lovecraft? So I went on a huge kick, and I knew that story really well. And then, you know, when I read it, I went, you know, I really like this, but at the same time, this isn't 1995, and I don't have Michael Douglas that I can throw this as a cast member, because if we were going with the male skewed version, I think it wouldn't play, and I don't think people would appreciate this purview, this point of view, especially in the cultural lexicon that we're in right now. I think it would have felt outdated, and it would have felt kind of boring.
Yeah.
And immediately I went, what if we just swap the genders? And not like, you know, let's go into final draft and just change all the names or anything. It has to resonate. There has to be a reason. And also, immediately, I thought of Catherine McMasters or McMichaels from Beyond, and went, you know, I remember when that movie came out and everyone gave Barbara shit for being like, what, 23 and supposed to be this like renowned, psychiatrist or whatever. And like, and you know, as a kid, I didn't give a shit, but years later, I watched it and went, you know, she is kind of young. That is kind of weird. So immediately I went, well, this has to be, I would love to do this if this was, you know, female led. And if we kept the ages as older, older characters, because that to me felt dangerous, and that shouldn't feel dangerous. That should just be the norm. It should just be, here are these characters. You know, they're successful women. They're in their late 40s and early 50s. They can have sexual feelings too. They can want to see what the other side of the grass is like. There's nothing wrong with going from that purview. Now, immediately I went, fuck, they're not going to go for this at all. Like they're going to go ixnay. And I didn't even think about Barbara being involved in it one bit, because I think at the time she said, I'm just producing this. So at the same time, I had just started to collaborate with my writing partner, Bekah, and she was in Europe at the time during the pandemic. So I sent it to her, and I just went, take a look and see what you think. So I read it, went, got excited, but also got kind of dismayed too. thought of the idea about the female swapping genders thing, then went to bed. Then I woke up the next morning, and now Bekah's 8 hours ahead, and she wrote me this 8-page thesis on why we should change the genders, and I didn't even mention it. And I went, fuck, man, we're on to something. So we sent that over to Dennis and Barbara, and just said, like, look, I don't know if you're going to like this or not, but if you want to get into bed with me on this, here's what I'd love to do. And these are just ideas, and if you don't like it, no harm, no foul. Go see what Joe Begas is doing. And then, shock of shocks, Dennis came back to us and said, "You know what? That's really interesting. Give me, let me think about it." 3 weeks later, we got the new draft, and it was not just changing Edward to Elizabeth and Daniel to Daniela. He deep dove into what the thematics would be if we changed the genders. And it was just like, it got so exciting that it felt like Stuart made that choice. And that from then on, that's kind of where I went, all right, I really want to do this. And I want to do it in a way that is paying homage to a friend of mine, but more than that, to a hero of mine who changed the way that I saw cinema, that I saw sexuality, that I saw horror. Like when I saw Reanimator, that rewired me when I was a kid. And then From Beyond, and then all of his other movies, even just the fact that he never seemed like, other than the Lovecraft stuff, to stay in one place in genre. Like when I saw King of the Ants, I'm like, is this the same guy?
Yeah.
So, and that's always been kind of my modus operandi as well. So it was, once we kind of cracked the code, so to speak, and didn't alienate anybody, and felt like this was the right thing to do, we were off to the races.
And a lot
awesome.
A lot of that feeling comes in the casting. It looks like you did get a lot of the play. You got an actor from King of the Ants who's also in the Reanimator stage show. You got Graham Skipper from the stage show. You got Barbara. I mean, it just felt like purposeful in that way. It felt like casting was a bit of a love letter to their world, which I really appreciated. But walk us through that. Walk us through that and the lead casting, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, I will say I'm glad that you picked up on Chris.
Yeah,
from King of the
I really like that cameo.
Spoiler alert. He's playing the character from King of the Ants.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah. He's playing Crowley from King of the Ants years later. And we kind of threw in a couple wrinkles in there too, sexually on his plight. But it was a snowball effect, at least with a lot of the actors that we were blessed to have, kind of come on board in more of these supporting roles. Graham was literally like, he texted me and said, "You're doing that movie? I'm in." And then a day later, he goes, "Oh, Chris from Reanimator and King of the Ants, yeah, he's in too." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then I had to, because originally the part of that patient that Heather was going to hypnotize, that ended up becoming a plot point and a setup for later on, that was supposed to be Jeffrey Combs. Wow. And we had tried, and his schedule just wasn't available, which was a bummer. And believe me, Barbara tried. I think she actually went to his house or something like that. But she tried, and it just didn't work out. So we had this part available, and I'm like, as much as it'd be great to have Jeffrey in this, we could also have another kind of Stuart Gordon connection there too. But in terms, and then Jonah Ray, who's just a huge horror movie fan, he texted both Barbara and I at the same time and said, "I'm in. Whatever you guys want, I'm in." We're like, okay. Orderly number one.
Yeah, that other orderly really fucked it up though, right? Like every time he was with that mustache, dude, the other orderly.
I will give you a long story short. I was not supposed to be in the movie. Anytime that I'm in one of my movies, it's because somebody fucking bailed. Without fail. Every single time, it's either somebody didn't show up or we ran out of English speaking actors. That's usually the case. And I go, okay, here we go. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I have this tradition whenever I'm, in the throes of production and everybody's just trudging to the finish line, no matter what the production is, whether you have a 60-day shoot or an 18 or 19-day shoot, by the time you get to the last day, everybody's just wiped. And as a morale booster, because I'm a total fucking clown, I usually grow my beard out so I look like fucking Mad Dog Morgan by the end of the shoot and everything, nice and burly. And then the last day, I shave it all off and leave a porn stash, because there's nothing better than walking onto set and everyone brightens up and goes like, hey, bro. It works like a fucking charm.
That's fine.
Bekah, I highly recommend
You got to do that.
I'll work on it. I do trivia with the cast and crew. It's not quite as cool as that.
Anything that
did Joe Wicker do his did he do his prizing that he always does after lunch?
Oh yeah. Oh,
okay.
The let's give away shirts from Candyman and
random fucking
from other movies.
Yeah.
You know what though? That sort of stuff goes so far with the crew.
Good. I still have
mine. Feel like you're a family, you know.
I won while we were shooting Glorious, and he was doing those little prizes after lunch every day. I won this little picture of a seal gull, and it says, "You regret every French fry you don't eat." And I don't even know what it means, because it's a picture of a seagull and it's talking about French fries, but it's hanging in my office, and it's still like, I won that. It was like a great day.
And you know what? You feel like it earned it. So. Yeah. So long story short, so I go to set, and all the grips are like, "Hey, poor Lynch," you know. It already was working a charm. So Jonah was playing this one character. He's playing the orderly, and me being Mr. fucking Kubrick, and I had to have symmetry in my shots. I needed to have the other orderly be 6'11", or at least somewhat like that. And the local guy that we cast, nobody looked at his height. When we cast him online, all we saw was a headshot and a video, you know, of his lines, which he didn't really have any. And he walks into the set, and it was like this. Ready? Hi everybody, how's it going? I'm here for the movie. I was like, oh shit! And immediately, survival mode kicked in, and I run to costumes. I go, do you have another orderly costume, like one that I could wear? And that's how I got in the part. Now, being fair and trying to be the placating, you know, director that I hope I am, I ran back to the guy and went, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you're here. Listen, I have this idea. I don't know if you're up for it, but I want it. You just have this look, a doctor, not an orderly, but a doctor. How about you play the doctor?" And he's like, "Sounds great." So he's one of the guys with Kim, our first AD, who runs in with the paddles later on. I didn't fire him. He's still in the movie. But it was not going to work, like with these shots that I was going to have of, like, you know, Barbara walking down Miskatonic University and seeing these two guys behind her. If there was one guy that was this height and one guy that was that height, it was gonna be a disaster. But that is why the stash is there.
I thought that's
purely out of necessity.
I thought that was going to be how you cast Bruce Davison. You're like, this little guy comes in and didn't get the orderly role, so I gave him a bigger role. Short eyes. Bruce Davis.
Yeah, not quite, you know.
Yeah.
Ozana, it was like, Ozana's raid, Bruce, and he's like, what? Who? What?
He's so good. He's just one of the best actors. I love that guy.
That guy, having him on set, and anytime I've had like veteran actors and work with them before, you know, you want to stop what you're doing at all times and just say like, oh my God, what was it like being, you know, scientist number 2 in Close Encounters of the Third Kind? And you know what? Fucker has stories. Like, he's got stories for years.
He's worked with everyone. Bruce,
he's
worked with everyone.
So he's been there. He's done that. Like, he has been through the shit. Like, even when like we had like a couple rough days, he didn't bat an eyelash. He was just like, "That's production," you know. Like, but not in a way that was like cynical. He has seen every permutation of what a production goes through, more than anybody else on that set. And I'm sure he's seen it all before, and he just rolled with it, man. Like, he just kind of went, just tell me where you need me to be. If anything, I'll go read my book. And when you're ready for me, let me know. And at first I was like, does he give a shit? Like, is he invested in my movie? And then you sit him down and, you know, you tell him what scene we're doing and everything. And then next thing you know, he is on it. Like, just the second you call action, and he started affecting his voice, and he started getting a little swishy. Like, he just disappeared. The second you call cut, he's, you know. So when I was doing X-Men with Bryan Singer, I'm like, should we be having this conversation right now, Bruce? I don't know. I don't like, is that cool? Are we going to get canceled? No? Okay, we're good. All right, back to one.
Well, it's also interesting.
But
It's
he
a little
was
spoilery, but he's not also playing exactly himself, and that makes for
No.
a good mysterious character. Like, you know,
Oh.
there's something under there that even by the end of the movie you don't totally know who that figure was, and I think that's a very effective thing about the film. It keeps you wondering a little bit.
That was something that we organically worked on, and this is where, like, someone recently was like, "That's not a Lovecraft movie at all." I'm like, "Okay, I get it, because it doesn't." And and I asked them why, and there's no tentacles. I'm like, does it really always need to have tentacles to be a Lovecraft story?
He didn't
Like,
always put in tentacles.
no, it's the cosmic horror of it all. Like, the thing that I got really excited about, and this is purely for Bruce, is that in the script, F from Wait is really the first embodiment of this entity, the first time that we meet them.
Mm-hmm.
And or whether it's F from Wait or Asa Wait, like, one of those two is going to be the first time that the audience is introduced to this nefarious force, this entity. And the more and more we started kind of breaking down the script, the more and more I'm going, I don't have any scene where we have, like, the end of the relic or end of days or something like that. By the way, good end of days discussion before.
That was my first time watching it, by the way.
That's crazy. But if this was a 90s movie, there would be some big CG moment where something's coming out of someone's body and it's like dancing, or it looks like that thing from The Gate, where it's like coming out of the floor. We had none of that.
Okay, that would have been cool, Joe, actually.
Yeah,
you shouldn't have mentioned the gate. You shouldn't have mentioned the gate.
I want a giant creature bursting out of the floor, but that's okay. We can save that for the next one.
That'll be for a more suitable flesh. We'll make sure that we have stop motion.
Call Tibor. Get Tibor on the phone.
Multiple arms, little baby arms doing its thing.
I would love it. Old guys falling to the ground and turning into 12.
It's one of the best scenes ever.
It's beautiful.
Ever.
Yeah,
I love that.
It's magic. That's the thing. It's magic when you have a moment like that.
Yeah.
Still, whenever I show people that movie for the first time, even they've turned, like Bekah's never seen it before. And I was like, this is PG-13.
Yeah.
Like, this played at 3 p.m. at the multiplex when, this was giving me nightmares more than a Friday the 13th movie. That movie is still so scary, so effective.
Because they ran The Gate, like, I remember watching it on
HBO
Cinemax or HBO.
Yeah.
That was it.
It was on HBO all the time.
Yeah, like, it was just such an idle movie. And, like, when the guy's looking at his hand and it's got, like, the eyeball in it, like, and the handyman in the closet.
Yeah, so
my God, that shit fucked me up. Like, I saw that way too young. I have to show that to my kids. They need that level of trauma. I'm on it.
I think it is a better gateway horror movie for kids, because a lot of people talk about how Poltergeist is a good gateway movie for kids, and it is, because it is legitimately scary.
I think it fucks you up too much. I think Poltergeist it made me a horror kid in the long run, but for like 5 years I couldn't sleep. Like, I started probably at 5 or whatever, and it fucked me up.
No, Poltergeist fucked me up badly, but there's something about The Gate that is, and I think it's mainly because, like, when you look at Poltergeist is coming from the purview of the parents more than it is the kids. The kids have their moments, but it's really Craig T. Nelson and what's her name, Jo Beth Williams.
Yeah.
It's really their movie more than anything else, and they have to protect the kids. The Gate is a movie shot for the kid point of view.
Yeah.
And it is a kid's nightmare. And I think that plays so much better with, like, younger kids, because then they get to put themselves in little Stevie Dorff's shoes, and the nerdy kid who ends up being in Gate 2, which was a total.
Well, I think that word gateway is about they're also in control. They're in control of their fates, the kids, versus when you just fuck someone up like a Poltergeist or something and you get terrified. That isn't necessarily gateway. It might not bring you in. It might make you a horror fan in the long run. But Gateway, I think it's more like the Monster Squad and things like Gate, because you're empowering the kids to be the ones in the adventure. It's
they're the ones who have to solve the problem, and ultimately they do. Yeah. And now all I think of is, "You've been bad," and the fucking dad's face melts. Oh God!
And Phantasm's the other greatest. I think Phantasm's in that same category because the kid is just so good. Like, it's one of the best young performances.
The kid is good, but man, that movie. When I watched that, they did a retrospective of Phantasm, and then they showed Ravager at Beyond.
I was there.
We were there.
Yeah, and that brand new, like, restoration that J.J. Abrams did, I I had nightmares that night. I've seen
Brilliant
that movie so many times, but that movie it still holds. It's one thing if a movie still holds up. It's another movie. It's another thing if a movie can be so powerful, whether or not you want to chalk it up to dream logic or what have you, that's fine. That movie still is legitimately terrifying in all the right places. It is a waking nightmare. It is a 95-minute nightmare in someone's soul.
And think about it, it's very cosmic horror in a way that isn't at all Lovecraftian. It's its own version of a cosmic horror film, which is super impressive. Like to just have a kind of a fresh take on that feeling, I think.
The fact that he world built like that too, it's so true.
Yeah, I included Phantasm in the lecture that I gave last week talking about, I didn't even see Phantasm till I was 20 something, but that we did have this time period in the late 80s, early 90s where we were having this influx of cosmic horror, and it wasn't even termed so at the time. And we were seeing it in a variety of different places. It wasn't just like The Thing and, Event Horizon and things like this. Like Jacob's Ladder goes there. Like it was like we were just seeing this weird influx for about a 7-year period where it was just
In the Mouth of Madness. Well, I remember when those movies came out, they were considered supernatural thrillers.
Yep.
I remember that being used a lot. But you're right. Cosmic horror wasn't really like a term that people used very often, or at least to sell a movie.
But technically, The Gate is as well. Like I would classify, there is a version of The Gate that is so goddamn Lovecraftian. I mean, even the monsters in it, the body morphing, like, because the whole thing that I posit cosmic horror on is its fear of the unknown. And then when you get the knowledge of the unknown, that's when you realize how insignificant you are, that there's something bigger out there. And there's usually like a body transformation that happens with it. And it hits like every single one of those notes.
That's why I'm so bummed that you're not going to be at the screening at USC tomorrow night. And I get it. You have a lot of shit
we have to go to Knoxville.
Well, of course.
Hey, your movie's playing there too. We can talk about it there.
Yeah.
You know what? You guys are going to do the Q&A for me.
I think it's right before we get on the plane when we leave, so we might actually be able to do that.
Damn it. But to bring it back to the cosmic horror in Suitable Flesh, like that's exactly what we talked about, because there was a couple actors who were going like, who's the alpha? Who's the person that we're supposed to be kind of using as an archetype for our tells? Because all the actors, when we all got together, we talked about like, how are we going to aesthetically let the audience know there's little tells, there's little tricks, the crooked hand, certain words, little things that would kind of tip the hat to the audience so that they at least knew up until the end of the film that they weren't being left too far behind in who is who. I don't want to confuse the audience until I do. And that was something that we talked about over and over again in Zoom calls when we got together. And, when we quickly realized, like, we never have that moment where the entity exposes itself. It exposes itself in other ways. But that, to me, the fact that there is no, and I don't want to give too much away, but there is no embodiment of the entity. It is this nebulous thing that has been floating through the ether in history before. And without giving too much away, it's going to probably still continue to do that. That, to me, is so much more terrifying than letting the theater of the mind, let the audience conjure up where this thing came from, what it is now, and where it could be. But then to go back to Bruce Davison, see, I'm trying to bring it back around again. He was the one that everyone kind of looked for in terms of finding little things, because when you read the script, Ephraim Waite was the one that kept being referred to as him or it or the thing or the entity. It wasn't the entity itself. It was Ephraim. It was always Ephraim. So when we met with everybody together, Bruce actually recorded everyone else's dialogue on his phone, so that when like any of the scenes that Heather was in when the entity was inside of her, or with Barbara or Judah, they had Bruce's version of what the dialogue was, just so that there would be a different kind of iteration, so that they weren't just kind of going like, they needed a flagpole. They needed some kind of like flag in the ground for them to say like, okay, this is how this version of the entity would have said this or would have done that. It was great. And then to have all these actors go, I feel like we're getting a master class from this actor who has been in so many things before. Like Judah was just like, tell me more, Bruce, tell me more. You know, it was amazing to see how much respect each of the actors had for each other, everyone, you know, and then, you know, to roll it back around even further to answer your question that you asked about 35 minutes ago, how we got the rest of the cast was, you know, and I'm sure like for you, Bekah, you know, because I know your movie, you know, pretty much in and out at this point. Elric, I'll be waiting for your screen or copy that you can be sending to me soon for your latest cut.
Weirdly enough, there's some similarities between these totally different approaches, me and your film. Like when I was watching, I was like, because they both do revolve around sexual stuff. So it was actually very interesting.
Vastly different tones and approaches.
They're like, it would make an interesting double.
I can't wait. I can't wait. The moment that you mentioned that you were doing something, I was like, oh my God. I like both of you guys, when both of you guys were like, talking about making, you know, like making your first film or making like with Glorious when we were outside the New Beverly, you were talking about it. And I went, Ryan Quanten. To go back to that.
Like, that's the casting.
No, Joe is the reason that we got Ryan.
But Ryan, you know, to me, and I don't know if this is true for you, but like once you set that one actor into that, like when you fit that circle, you know, into that like sphere hole, whatever, that's very weirdly sexual. Everything kind of falls into place and everything solidifies because for some actors, they go, well, if they're in it, then I want to be in it, you know? And when Heather was brought up, because we cast for about 6 months and it was a lot of, you know, people going like, I don't know, there's too much sex in this or it's too provocative. That was the biggest issue that most of the actors that we approached had. And when Barbara was the one who brought up Heather Graham, I don't know where it came from. She just kind of like, what about Heather Graham? And I went like, huh. And what's interesting is that most people, when you say Heather Graham, you know, they go to Boogie Nights or Bowfinger or Austin Powers for cameo on Scrubs. You know, they go for more the lighter stuff, the kookier stuff. The two movies that I went to immediately that made me go, you know what? That's a fucking great idea. The first one is Drugstore Cowboy. I remember watching her because I was in love with her after License to Drive. When I saw her in License to Drive, I'm like, she's dreamy. But then I saw her in Drugstore Cowboy and went, huh, like it was a very disturbing performance.
She was named after a car in License, Mercedes. Her name was Mercedes Lane in License to Drive. I remember that movie so well.
All too well. And then it was the scene in Boogie Nights, not the first half, but the scene in the limo.
Very
one
bleak
where
scene.
They're shooting it. We're gonna make, you know, cinema history right here on videotape. But there is a snap zoom to her face when she looks at the camera and realizes that this is a kid that she went to high school with, and she's got to have sex with him on camera in this situation, probably gacked out of her brain. That look has haunted me forever. And that was the moment that I went, that's someone that I like, who I would love to work with on this, because I know so many different iterations of who she is and what she can do and where she could go. And especially with a part like this, that I have to have very clear definitions of who these different people are in the same body with the same actor. Not easy at all. And you know, we, with other actors in other roles, like Asa Waite's part, you know, we were having to test a lot of kids, and you know, some people just couldn't get into the separation from one character to the other. It was like always very much like it was amalgam of that. There weren't clearly defined versions of, here's a 20-year-old kid and here's the dirty old man or the entity or what have you. But it took like a 10 or 15 minute Zoom call with Heather. It was a much longer call, but within 15 minutes I went, you want to do this movie with me? She goes, I was just going to ask you, do you want to do the movie? I'm like, yes, let's go. And once we got her in, everything else clicked into place. You know, getting Judah was hard, but once we kind of let him know, like, oh, Heather Graham is in, he was like, that's a really cool idea. And then Jonathan Sheck, I had worked with him on Creep Show. And that was like, literally, I walked in one day and we were, because what I wanted to do with that part was I didn't want it to be the way it was written. It was kind of schlubby, you know. It was written almost as if you almost expected Elizabeth Derby to be like, "See ya, I'm gonna go have a tryst with this dude." I wanted to really play off of the gay archetype or the queer archetype of like the twink and the bear as being these kind of two sides of the male masculine coin.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, like, well, knowing that I had Judah, and you know, and I don't think he'll take offense at this, but he is like the perfect twink. I needed to have a dichotomy to that. I didn't want to have someone go, of course, it's got to be, you know, like you got to go with the cute little young, you know, young guy. I needed someone to go, oh, God, but look at how fucking strapped that dude is. I wanted him to be a hunk. I wanted him to be a fucking hunk. And having worked with Jonathan, I walked in one day and Bekah was just like, "What about Shek?" And I'm like, "What about Shek? Hold on. Hey, do you want to be in this movie? It's a Lovecraft movie. ... Yes, I'm fucking in." That was it. That was it. He was in. Barbara was actually the hardest person to cast, mainly or like that part, because she did not want to be in the movie, and not because of the quality or anything. It was, she just wanted to produce, and I don't blame her. You know, like she's become like a veritable force when it comes to knowing the genre, knowing what it takes to make you know, a genre film on a budget, on a schedule. She's been around the block with that before. She's been on sets on both sides of the camera, and I didn't push her at all when she said, "I don't want to be in the, you know, I just want to produce." I'm like, "That's fine, no problem at all." And then she saw the package that we basically put together between all of the cast, what we had developed the script into, all the little things that we had kind of brought together. And I think she just kind of got FOMO from it. She was just like, "Man, this seems like a lot of fun." And it was also Mark Ward was like, "Why the fuck do you not have Barbara in this?" And they weren't involved at the time. But you know, I've known Mark for years, and he knew the script and everything, and he was just like, "Why isn't Barbara in this movie?" And I'm like, "I know, right? Like, let me ask her again." And then it was like, "Oh, okay, fine." The second that she said yes, and I don't know if you guys have worked with her directly before, like on camera,
yeah,
that woman puts in fucking work. Like, I worked with her on Creepshow, and there is, and I had a great cast between Brian Quanten and Breckenmeyer in the first episode that I had done, and then Eric Edelstein and Barbara in Pipe Screams. I never had an actor send me so many videos of her doing like iterations of her character, and not in an annoying way. She was testing shit out. She was putting in the homework more than most other actors I've ever worked with before.
Wow.
She was so prepared. She knew, I hope she doesn't take an insult to this, but the closest person I can think of that I've come into contact with that puts in that kind of work, that I've heard puts in that kind of preparation, is Nicolas Cage, where Nicolas Cage will be like, "Listen, man, I know the entire script back and forth. I know my part, I know their part, I know everybody's part. Like, I am fully ensconced in this, man. I got this." That's Barbara. She knew that part. She could have been our script supervisor, and you know what? I wish she was at times, but like she was so prepared, and yet she could be so prepared. And then the second I call cut, she's going, "Okay, so let's make sure that lunch is here. And let's, did the grip truck come, or is the location secured for tomorrow? Okay, great. Let's make sure that happens." Like, she was so on it. But that's just the power of Barbara Crampton, is that like she can be able to switch between actor and producer like on a dime. So put that all together, and then Bruce was just, you know, like, originally we were so close to getting Tom Atkins. And the thing is that, and I'll be honest, like, we were going for the somewhat like stunt casting in a way. I would have loved to have worked with Chris Sarandon, but he wasn't available.
Yeah.
Tom Atkins was like, you know, there's a really cool script, but you know, I'm working in Philadelphia on my TV show. And then Barbara just knew Bruce and called him up, and Bruce said, "Sure," that was it. And I can't think of anyone else that would have been better. So I got really blessed with this cast.
He also looks like a scholar to me.
Yeah.
Bruce has the scholar, old scholar.
He has,
Atkins is a much more blue collar than that, in that sense, you know?
Yeah.
Bruce
No,
is
it
very
all fell
much
into place.
Yeah, that's something that actually Dennis and I talked about when we did our panel, is that how you update Lovecraft, like why you change him for screen. And it's always like, he always wrote the same protagonists. And I love Lovecraft, but he always wrote older white dude who's really educated, gets into trouble in some capacity. And Bruce is that. He's like that level, but we're seeing the movie through more interesting eyeballs in this instance. So it's like,
glad you brought that up.
Embodies old school Lovecraft, and then we get, because he's the entrance to the book and everything, but we get the story through a much more interesting means of transportation.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I actually had a conversation with Bruce, because I think Bruce had never seen Reanimator before. And of course, I told all the actors, like, you got to watch this movie, you got to watch all that stuff. And Bruce had never seen Reanimator before. And we were a couple days before we were shooting, and he's like, hey, Joe, just want to let you know, I watched Reanimator. That was a crazy movie. And I'm like, yeah, I know, right? And he mentioned how, he goes, if anything, I think my character would have been Herbert West in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I go, you're fucking right. Like, holy shit, if this was your story. And that's the thing that I love about Lovecraft too. A lot of people have been asking, like, how do you adapt Lovecraft? And it's not easy. You have someone like Dennis Paoli who can really crack the code, and you take it from there. But one of the things that I noticed a lot, having reread the book and read other short stories of his while we were kind of making it to kind of get the feel of it, is Lovecraft is so good at having characters tell stories, like getting it from their point of view, whether it's in first person or someone is telling someone else's story. Those, and then ultimately becomes in a cinematic form a very long flashback. But they are tales upon tales. It's like a hat on a hat, but it's a tale on a tale. And when Bruce was saying this, he goes, but this isn't my story. This is her story. And I go, that's exactly it. Go back to one and get on your fucking mark, Bruce. That poor guy, I felt so bad. His last night, he had to lay on the ground for the entire time because his stand-in didn't show up. So he had to be on the ground the entire time during all the sex scenes, and he's just going, how's it going up there? How's the weather up there? Is it hot? Is it hot up there? Thank God Bruce Davis is here to cut through the fucking tension. Not there was, but anytime you're doing a sex scene, it can get a little awkward no matter what, as prepared as you are. But then you have this wonderfully crusty old dude that's laying on the ground just twiddling his thumbs going like, there's sex going on up there, isn't there? Yes, there is, isn't there? Yes, I love this. Yes. So we dedicated one of the shots of the movie for him. It's in one of the sex scenes, and this was a camera that I had just grabbed and like thrown on the ground, because I love sex scenes in movies that find different angles. Like you guys remember Monsters Ball? That whole sex scene is comprised of shots that shouldn't be in sex scenes, but they are. Like shots of looking through grates in a bird cage, or just like weird angles that make no sense, systematically. It's not the usual like hands upon hands and Tony Scott lips against neon.
There's one sex scene in Monsters Ball, and I think it's in Monsters Ball. It's where he hooks up with the prostitute, and she's in his house for like maybe 2 minutes. It's shot in a wide from the other side of the room in one shot. Like it's all one shot. There's so no coverage. Unpleasant.
Exactly. And that's not that I wanted to go unpleasant, but I wanted to find
that's just a perspective,
details. Yeah. But like when you're having sex, sometimes when you're looking at things, not that you're not focused on your partner, but you find details that become kind of ingrained in your head. And there was this one moment when we were kind of doing the deed, and it was a very close set, and everyone was very, protected or whatever. But there was something that Heather's foot was doing with her shoe, and it was just bouncing like off in the corner. And I went, and we brought the camera down, and I got that. But I also noticed that Bruce's body is like splayed out in the background, and he's just sitting there dead. I'm like, I'm gonna make Bruce so happy that I'm at least capturing a moment where he is in the scene while there's a sexual detail going on. So
that's fine.
The power of Bruce Davison.
Yeah. He's a fearless guy. Recommending everyone watch Short Eyes, which is probably the performance the role you would least want to play in your life, which is basically he's playing a convicted pedophile who just enters prison, and he's then told what a short eyes is in prison, and it is brutal movie, unbelievable movie that the New Bev championed at one point. But he's so good in that.
That's right.
That and Last Summer, they're two movies that are printed on my brain.
God, so good.
Yeah, great actor.
Wow. Well, we had brought you in tonight, Joe, to do a topic, but we ended up spending the entire show just talking about.
So sorry.
I think we need a part two.
That means we're just going to bring you back in a couple of months to talk about. We had planned to talk about New York sleaze films because we know
I know
you love them and we love them, and we haven't talked about them on the show yet. We haven't done it as a topic, so we're going to bring you back in 2 months to talk about New York sleaze.
Right before,
yeah,
where your cognitive faculties are higher, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I don't have a movie coming out or an accident going on, like in the interim, that would be
There's
great.
A
because
strike happening. I know you've been doing
strike.
You have been handling all the press for this. It's insane how much I have seen you over the past couple of weeks. Everywhere. You're just traveling.
And I'm sorry. I feel so bad. Like, I'm sure there's plenty of people who've already muted me on Twitter or X or whatever, but someone's got to do it. Like when you have an indie film and you don't have, your stars who are usually, especially one of them who has always done the talk show rounds and, been able to go on the talk shows and being like the face of the movie. Not that we hired her for that, but it helps. We're having to do the Dog and Pony show is not the easiest thing in the world. Now, that said, look, for as scrappy as this movie is, I'm really proud of it. I'm proud of what we did. I'm proud that we got it out there and we made it, it ultimately the way we wanted to. And, I've now realized, and I'm sure you guys, go through this in one form or another, but, once you release the movie onto the world, you can't do anything. There isn't a Stuart Gordon that's going to go like, kid, I got some notes for you. You can't go back to the well with that. And, we were really blessed with, the way that it was received at Tribeca and other festivals thus far. I know the other shoe's going to drop. Believe me, I look at Letterboxd. It's either going like, wow, or, and the thing that I've realized with every film that I've done is that you don't have control over the subjectivity of your audience.
Mm-hmm.
They are going to bring their own baggage to it. Some people don't like sex in movies. There's nothing wrong with that. Some people don't like cosmic horror. Some people don't like, orderlies with mustaches, whatever it is. So like, they're going to either like it or not like it on their own accord. Maybe they have a bad day. Maybe they have a great day. Who knows? Maybe it gets them laid. Maybe it doesn't. I had a movie that was, I'm going to be very, very careful with the way I say this, but there was a movie that was accepted of mine that I found out later that almost didn't get accepted because the screener copy didn't get one of the programmers laid. I'm going to leave it at that.
Wow.
But, sometimes this shit happens, man, and at the very least, I know that what we did, we set out to do, which was to continue this Miskatonic verse kind of mythology that that was set up by Stuart, that was set up by Dennis and Brian and Barbara and Bruce and Jeffrey and all those people that we grew up with Reanimator, with From Beyond. And if I could harness just a smidge of the feeling that I got when I saw those movies, the danger of it, the sexiness of it, the taboo of it all, the cosmic of it all, and that's honestly, all attributed to these filmmakers that made me who I am. So if this is my way of saying thank you to them, then great,
Beautiful.
And hopefully people dig it. And if they don't, no harm, no foul. See you next time.
There was also sorry.
Oh, I was just going to give a quick shout out to Dave Matthews, because you used the same DP that I did for Glorious, and I will shoot anything with that man now. I love him so much. And he
are the reason
outdid himself in this as well.
You are the reason why I hired him, because,
So great.
Like I was saying before, really quick, I wanted to make this movie with as many female keys as possible, because like said from the beginning when I was making my lookbook, I wanted this to be a female gaze horror film. Now, the first person to tell you I have a penis, so like what can you do? So there was only so far that my gaze could have gone, and I wanted to surround myself with as many female artisans as possible to help me along in creating Elizabeth Derby's story the way that we wanted it to look. We wanted to have the objective gaze that would hopefully be attributed to that. It didn't work out with the DP because of a scheduling reason. I found a really great DP from Australia. She was amazing. And then she got a TV show from Apple TV. What are you going to do? And then at the last minute, like we ended up talking to Dave, and Dave was like our liaison at iVox at the time. And he was just going to relegate himself to B camera. He actually even said, he's like, I really just kind of want to just watch, like, and
that
and there is something
sounds
to be
so
said.
much like him. Oh my God. He just has this laid back Southern drawl. He's just so chill.
You need that on set.
Yeah.
Like, I loved the fact that, like, I'm a bit of a Tasmanian devil on set in a good way. Like, I'm always trying to be positive, but I'm like, choo, 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 all over the place.
I'm a cheerleader, bubbly, just, raring to go, practically like on speed the whole time. And he is just chill. And whereas I walk in and I'm like, that's like a movie. He is just so unflappable the whole time.
When we would have moments where I would, because I have this, another weird tradition that I have on set is anytime that there's like a print take, I go, fuck yeah. And they have a little thing that's like on the slate that's a fuck yeah take. So every time I'd be like, yeah, like the backup camera moment, right? That was a big moment that I had to get right. And when we did get it right on the third take, I'm like fist pumping and everything. And I look over at Dave and he's just like,
I had figured that you had to CG comp that, like you had to like black the screen, and then you actually had a camera kind of going into the person's face.
Well, let's not spoil that scene too much, guys, because that was one of the few. That's
great.
I will say that's one of the moments of when you watch a movie, something you've never seen before. I'd never seen that before, quite like that, and so I was like, oh, this is a great thing to see in a movie like that. Yeah. So we haven't overly spoiled it, but let's not say any more on it because that's a good.
I will say, surprise. I thought it was a comp. I'm so impressed now.
The last,
like when you have Dave Matthews there, and he can be the air of calm when I'm going, that's a whole like you need that on set. But it was watching Glorious, and because I'd seen Jacob's Wife and I liked it, like I liked the way it looked and everything. But what he was able to do with what little resources you had in that little space. And then I think it was me emailing you and then talking to Quentin and just saying like, how, like, is this guy cool? And both of you were like, he's legit. And thank God he did it, man. Cause we'd still be shooting now if we didn't have Dave Matthews.
I have tried to get him on other projects, which ended up getting canceled because of the strike or more postponed. We'll wait. We're waiting for everything to come back up.
I put a pin in it. Yeah.
Yeah. Even some of the ones where like I'm supposed to go to Canada when they're asking me for a list of my favorite DPs, he's on the top. I don't know if he even realizes that yet, but I'm like so ready to take him with me to Canada or wherever I go. So yeah. Dave Matthews, you roll.
Well, the last thing I wanted to say about Joe there was because this is interesting because you're obviously making it in with the shadow of Stewart, obviously, right? It to an extent, but you know what it reminded me of, and like quite strongly, and this is a very general kind of, the vibe of the Masters of Horrors, the series, and I think because Dennis is such a big part of that, like Paoli wrote multiple episodes, but when it ended, I kind of had this feeling like I'd been in that world before a little bit, and I was like, oh, I know what it's reminding. It's reminding me of the feeling when you would watch those, because they weren't all 70 minutes or whatever they were, but there was a feeling of a similar world and a similar vibe, I thought, and I haven't seen that in a movie in a long time, I guess.
I think part of that is because, like, aesthetically, we were going for, some reviews that have come out have been like, it's very Skinamax. And I'm like, sure. Like I was watching a lot of those types of movies when we were kind of coming up with the aesthetics of it. A lot of the erotica from the late 80s and early 90s had a very particular look to it. But one of the things with Masters of Horror was that it was in this weird purgatory of, it's not quite a movie, yet it's not an episode of Tales from the Crypt, which was usually between 23 and 26 minutes. So structurally, it is, it's a small movie in certain respects. It is a very insular movie. It is one like snippet of this larger Arkham kind of Miskatonic verse that you get a peek into. like if we were ever going to explore this kind of storyline again, of course I would want to expand it and, kind of see what would the entity do now in this situation or that situation. But this was one story, and I felt like if we tried to expand it with anything that felt like scopier, it would dilute the fact that this was this one person's tale and one person's cautionary tale. So, and a lot of the aesthetics from a lot of those Masters of Horror movies, especially even like the one that Stuart and Dennis did together, has that feel. They don't, other than maybe Dante's, the what was it, Election Day?
Yeah.
That's that's the one. They don't really have big scopes to it. They were somewhat more personal, in their storytelling. So no, I can see that parallel totally.
Yeah, and I'm saying that as a good thing because I miss that kind of format that like
it's a tone.
Yeah, exactly. I think when you go bigger on some of these, then it does become it's another Miskatonic, it's another, but kind of a little bit like one of the Guillermo del Toro episodes of his show.
Pikmin's model.
Pikmin's like it's beautifully made, but I already know what that is. Due to having too many resources in a weird sense. Like I don't know. There's something I like. Also, I like the modern take on it. I like to see a truly modern contemporary people doing contemporary things. And suddenly now we clashes with this thing where, whether it's just Lovecraft, you also have there's a lot of allusions to rituals, and you don't necessarily see them play out, but there's enough allusions so that world because you've seen movies before. I don't need to see you play that part out. So anyway, great stuff. I hope you feel better physically.
Thank you.
I hope you don't slip into a dark tonight. Please don't.
I'm sorry. What were you guys saying? I'm fine. No, I'm good. No. I'd thank you guys. This was definitely a bright spot in a very, very weird day of mine, because I am a fan of the show, and we gotta please have me back because I have this whole list of fucking sleazcore movies that I've been dying to watch dying to talk about.
Yeah, we've been talking about doing this topic literally for a year now. It's been on this kind of Google Doc that I have where we kind of build out all of our topic ideas.
But much longer than that, years before. In fact, the last time we were all physically in the same place was Panic Fest 2019, 2018.
Yeah,
and I was eating breakfast, and Joe was talking to me, and I said, what topic would you do? I don't know if it was this or Pure, whichever show we were talking about. I said, what would you do? And you said New York City sleazecore. And I remembered, so that was years ago so either way, this is destined to happen.
We were at the Chicken and Pickle. I remember that.
The Chicken Pickle, that place was so good.
Yep, sitting next to you and AJ Bowen. That's who we were all together. And then after that, there was nothing for a couple of years. It all started to close. But here we are.
Well, let's bring it all back again. I'm ready to do it whenever you guys are ready to do it. And somebody cancels, just let me know.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
We're in. Thank you so much, Joe. Have an awesome night. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Please remember, if you're looking for some super deep cuts during the in-between of our regular Colors of the Dark shows, you can head over to our Patreons where we place all the really fucking weird stuff. Thank you all so much for the support. We are headed to Knoxville for this coming weekend, so we hope to see you there. And for everybody else, we will be back in 2 weeks with a killer Halloween episode. The Colors of the Dark podcast is a Fangoria production. Producers and co-hosts are Rebekah McKendry and Elric Kane. Executive producers are Tara Ainsley and Abby Gould. Sonic branding by Michael Rodriguez. And, of course, our amazing sound engineer, Ernie Hurtado.